Wild sockeye salmon. It's the most iconic fish on BC's coast.
But getting this sustainable, high-quality seafood to the table is more challenging than most Canadians realize.
Today, we're going to see how wild salmon is harvested and learn all about the hands that touch this fish on its journey from the sea to our tables.
I'm Robert Clark. As a chef, I have spent my entire career in the pursuit of sustainable seafood.
I'm Carmen Ruiz Laza. As a consumer, I've made sourcing local Canadian seafood my mission. Rob and I are going to take you on a journey. We're going to meet the men and women that bring the sea to our tables.
Dig in, let's go.
Rob and I are in Port Alberni, British Columbia. Located on the west coast of Vancouver Island, this community is famous for salmon.
Situated at the head of the Alberni Inlet, Port Alberni is part of the traditional territory of several First Nations who have been harvesting salmon around here forever.
Now, the waters of the Alberni Inlet are a hub for commercial, sport, and Aboriginal fisheries.
We are here today because there's 5 wild British Columbia species of salmon. We're here for sockeye.
Sockeye.
Barkley Sound is famous for sockeye. Port Alberni is famous for sockeye.
Sockeye is one of the 5 commercially harvested salmon species in British Columbia.
Noted for its bright red flesh and firm texture, sockeye is king of the West Coast.
And what makes sockeye so popular?
There's the saying, fat is flavor. So in seafood, that is also true. The oilier the fish, the more flavor. Salmon is high in omega-3. It's high in oils, high in fat. And the sockeye is the highest of them all.
Salmon live in both fresh and salt water at different points of their lives.
Key thing to know about wild British Columbia salmon, it's born in a river, it goes out to sea, it eats for 2 to 4 years, 5 years, fattens itself up, and comes back to the exact same spot it was born in.
In the case of our sockeye, that spot is past Sprout Lake, a short trip up the Somas River from the head of the Alberni Inlet.
But when they start to come back to the rivers, we start to harvest them.
British Columbia's commercial fleet is a very selective fishery. These fishermen take great care to ensure that only the targeted species, in this case sockeye salmon, is harvested.
Now the key to managing it is understanding how many you can harvest. So in this case, we're going to go get to see a fish ladder with a fish counter.
By knowing the number of salmon that are returning to their birthplace to spawn, we can determine how many fish can be responsibly harvested.
So we're fishing the ones that are in excess for what's necessary for next season.
Yes, in the terminal fishery, we're fishing the excess, which is the most sustainable way to harvest because enough have already reached the spawning ground.
This year, we're lucky. Estimates at the beginning of the season were that 350,000 sockeye would be returning.
So far, 800,000 have returned.
We were fortunate enough to be invited to the fish ladder near Sprout Lake by fisherman and conservationist Tom Tatouche.
Tom is both a commercial and Aboriginal fisherman. He's been intimately involved in the harvesting and management of salmon for over 40 years.
I started here when I was a kid. My first job was working in these ladders. Back in the day, we had homemade plexiglass boxes. We put it in the water and we counted fish. I'm a firm believer that we have to count before we can start harvest. We have to get an estimation of what the return is, rather than just harvesting and depleting the stock and then having it downgraded later.
The counter, managed by the Hoopachasset First Nation, is a key tool that the Department of Fisheries uses to monitor the health of the salmon stock.
Right here now is our electronic counter. We also have cameras. You see wires going through down there. We got a top view and a side view. This is part of what's going on across BC when you have co-management with the First Nations.
Tom is a member of the Harvest Roundtable, a collaborative management system where sport, commercial, and Aboriginal fishermen work with the Department of Fisheries to maintain adequate stocks of salmon for future generations.
It's very hard to disrespect the stakeholder if they're sitting at the same table. So you have to have a working relationship.
Let's go fishing.
Let's go fishing.
Yeah, let's go fishing.
Somas River flows through the heart of Port Alberni. Right now it seems calm, but under the water are thousands of sockeye.
Salmon season is short and Tom is busy. He and his family take every opportunity to get out on the water while the fishery is open.
I'm hoping to actually have an opportunity because Tom is not only fishes for his nation, but he also has a commercial fishing license. I'm hoping to get on his gill netter and see some action out here in Alberni Inlet.
What's up, everybody?
Tom, how you doing?
Good. Okay, I'm trying to get over to this reef right here between these two reefs. Okay, watch your fingers, watch your toes. If you look around the point over there, the fish will come around the point. So my hope is that we're going to get fish coming from the right and then fish coming straight up the gut. It'd be called catching if we were lucky all the time. But we're fishing. It's a big one. That's my kids on that boat. They've been fishing with me ever since they were children.
Both of Tom's boats use a type of commercial fishing gear called a gill net. The gill net is dragged behind the boat with lead weights and floating corks to keep it in place. And as the fish swim into it, they are caught at the largest point of their body, just behind the gills.
Barkley Sound is I believe, the poster child for the BC coast. I've been in it since I was almost 50 years, so I know what the industry is capable of.
The commercial fleet aren't all gill netters like Tom. Many fishermen use trollers to catch the fish. They're caught by hook and line and then brought aboard by hand. Other boats use seine nets to harvest the catch.
We use purse seines here in BC for salmon, and essentially they make a big circle with a purse seine, and then they draw the bottom in, and it captures all the fish. Using a net kind of sounds like that sounds very detrimental, but in a purse seine it's not, because they draw it up, and then that allows them to braille the fish out. The fish are still alive, swimming around in this enclosed space. And if there's any non-targeted species, endangered species, inappropriate species, they can return them to the water. They can return them to the ocean unharmed. So I really like that method of harvesting seafood.
I wasn't about to let Rob have all the fun, so we joined Tom for a ride on the river. Woo! Exciting.
So far we've been like on open water, but today Tom's taking us into the river. How much fish they're entitled to take or will take or want to take is all determined by how many fish have passed those ladders that we had an opportunity to see.
Am I clear? I guess we are doing donuts. Hang on, showtime. Hang on tight.
Okay, so I'm just guessing here.
Wow.
But what I would suggest is he's scaring the fish into the net. Lots of fish.
We got fish in here.
Yeah.
I've seen gill netting before, but I've never seen it done like that.
Oh my God, 1,
That's
2,
a
3,
very
4,
big-
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, at least
And there's a
15
little
fish.
black guy.
This is like,
Drum it. We'll go to the beach, clean it. And that's how the tatouches fish.
Rob and I have met fisherman Tom Tatouche and learned about how the salmon we eat at home is harvested by BC's fleet of commercial vessels.
But how that fish gets from the fleet of commercial vessels to our plates is complicated, and there are many crucial steps along the way.
Rob and I decide to head down to the docks to learn how the chain from fisherman to consumer works.
So it comes out perfect from the ocean, but by the time it gets to me, all those steps have to be perfect in order for me to have a perfect fish.
Exactly, and there's a number of people in between you and the harvester.
One man who's come all the way from Kelowna to check out the catch is fishmonger John Crofts.
John is a passionate advocate for improving the supply chain that connects fishers, processors, fishmongers, and finally, the consumer.
He's so passionate that he travels over 500 kilometers to Port Alberni several times a season to forge connections with the fishermen whose catch he sells in his store.
I'm a fishmonger by trade, and that's what my business is. And we also wholesale fish in the Okanagan Valley to all of the little independent restaurants there and some of the winery restaurants, including Cedar Creek. And so my job is to come down here and buy fish, check the quality, and mainly establish relationships with fishers and with people like Micah that operate the food hub plant here.
Do you want to add more to this?
Yeah, so a lot of the boats that we deal with as a fishmonger are smaller boats. There'd be gill netters like Tom's boat, or other gill netters that operate in that fishery. But we also do buy seine fish from the test fishery as well, which is the Nita Marie, which does the test fishing for the DFO.
Captain Brian of the Nita Maria is a salmon fisherman who also does stock testing for the Department of Fisheries.
With them not knowing what's holding in those marine areas, they can't determine a run size or quotas for the different sectors to catch. So different sectors being sports fishermen, commercial fishermen, gill nets, and seines. So they like to have an idea of what's holding in the inlet so they can determine a run size and timing. Is the fish migrating straight through to the rivers, or is it holding? Barkley's pretty much the jewel of the southern coast here. This place for some reason has been well managed, and we're getting return after return each year where you're being able to get some commercial fishery. The fish that we bring to the dock today will be transferred to Micah with Effingham Oysters. He'll do the processing of the fish, so he'll monitor the offload and he'll process the fish and off the market very fresh. For any boat that I've fished on, I've always been one of the ones that looked after the fish. And I could always hear my father, if some, it doesn't matter how late it was or whatever it was, if that fish needed attention, you paid attention to it, because the minute you get to the dock, if something's wrong, it's all coming back to you. We feed the world, just like a farmer does. And fish, I could only see more and more of a demand for. I mean, it's healthy. It's, this stuff is sustainable, and why not? Why not eat it? It's some of the best protein, and the best thing for your health is fish.
Micah Vibrugi runs a successful oyster business in the Alberni Inlet. And with a little encouragement from John, he has recently decided to expand into salmon processing.
What Mike is able to do is take the fish that's landed that day while it's still in rigor and have it processed and cleaned and then rack frozen right here, right in the plant.
3 of my employees, they got really excited because John was their teacher 5 months ago. And so they're dealing with the fish and it's going to John. They see the whole chain, how it's happening. It builds on itself. It's a real win-win.
I believe you two are the future. Your two relationships is fundamentally the most two important relationships that will help us move us forward, to have secure access to high quality, sustainable, well-managed fisheries.
And there is a network of fishmongers across Canada that all do a great job. Rob's in Edmonton, and Dan's in Toronto, and Hannah's in Halifax. And go see your local fishmonger. In the Okanagan, we've got 3 or 4 really good fishmongers. So if they're in your local area, go support your fishmonger.
Seeing how the chain connects fisherman and consumer, I'm convinced that we shoppers should go to our fish counter and look for Wild BC seafood.
Brought to you in part by Ocean Regenerative Aquaculture and CKR Seaweed. Your Nation's Table is brought to you in part by Cedar Creek Estate Winery.
Our fisherman Tom Tatouche and his family has invited us to a Hupachasset First Nation cultural site. We're right on the shores of Sprout Lake, near where the sockeye he caught were returning to spawn.
Right now we're at the Hoopachessa First Nation cultural site. What we have here is where our children and everyone come to relief and stress from everywhere in town and all of our daily lives.
Tom's going to show us a traditional salmon barbecue, and I am thrilled to see how he does this close up.
That's quite a fire you got going.
It's getting warm. We need it toasty. We need it really hot. The process is what we're going to do is we're going to grab a sockeye that hasn't been cleaned yet, and we're going to clean it through the back, and we're going to open it up, and we call it butterflying. Okay, so for the head, we run it around the collar. And once again, we're just going to use the backbone as our line.
Okay.
Now the first one, we just push right through. The next ones, you just use the bones as your guide. Now the next ones we're going are those belly bones that the chefs pull out all the time. Now we're going to turn around and the cutting, you're going to hear those bones. And we're going to go all the way down to the gut. And there we go.
Yeah, that's the bone that you're taking off?
The back bones and the belly bones. You can see there,
wow.
This was a female, right?
And when do you know when to stop? Well, I guess you leave about an inch, I guess.
I'm going to leave about an inch or two, and I'm going to turn around and cut that, and that's going to help it hold it onto the stick rather than open meat and flesh.
Okay.
So here we go again. Leave the tail. We got what we need. This is what it looks like on the done.
Beautiful.
And now
Wow,
that's
that's
an open
perfect.
butterfly. Now for support, what we're going to do is put these across
I see.
here and sandwich it.
And perfect.
There we go.
Nice.
And we'll just put this on the fire over the open flame, and then this will just be butterflied and held open.
Can I do the next one?
Well, let's do what we need to do first, and then we'll let you let you fly at it.
This is once in a lifetime, isn't it, Rob?
Yep. Certainly is.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do is dry the front up a little bit, and then what I'll do is I'll cook it through the back first. But what I want to do is dry it up.
Like, that's a lot of heat.
That's a lot of heat.
What's great, there's also smoke being incorporated in the whole thing.
Our fire is cooking pretty good. So what I'll do is I'll just turn these around because our fire is getting pretty warm.
Oh wow, look at that color.
Tom has invited me to contribute my own salmon dish to the meal, so I thought I would do a version of his cedar salmon that's adapted for the home barbecue. Though I get a sense I'm going to be hard-pressed to match what Tom's got going on by that fire.
I'm just going to portion it up, make it easier after it's cooked. And it's really simple. I'm just going to marinate this for about an hour. And what I've done, I've mixed it up. I have some soy, some hoisin sauce, a little bit of sesame seed oil, and grated fresh ginger. And that's all. That's all that is. It's very straightforward. And I've flaked up a little bit of seaweed. This is from Ocean's Regenerative. And I add this to potatoes, I add this to anything. But seaweed adds umami to the dish.
Oh,
okay, so I'm going to put this on the barbecue, on the grill, 500, 550 degrees, and then we'll be ready to eat. Yours is almost ready?
I'm getting close.
Okay,
yeah.
because mine's going to take 7 minutes.
We're good to go then.
Why don't I set the table
Okay.
and get ready for our meal? How's that?
Thank you. Well, let's get this.
Should I open that for you?
Nah.
No, you got it all?
I got it all.
Okay.
Normally I have to do it at home. Okay. So. Oh yeah. If that's right, it's going to be great. 7 minutes. Start the clock. I'm going to wash my hands, and then we'll get going.
While Rob cleans up, I'm going to set the table. It's been a long day, and I'm sure everyone is excited to eat this delicious meal.
Oh, here we go, Rob.
Hot fish coming through.
Okay. Here, we'll grab mine.
The second best salmon you're going to taste today.
Here we go, Rob. Here's mine.
Oh my. That is so natural.
No spices, just straight sauté and cedar and smoke and fire.
And love.
And love.
And love. Isn't that wonderful? My God.
We got two more to take off.
John, would you care to pour some wine for us?
Oh yes, Cedar Creek,
Yeah.
Chardonnay.
Yep.
It's my favorite so far this summer. Like it's my favorite this summer.
First of all, I wanted to introduce my Tatouche family. These are all my children, my nephews and nieces, and my sister's here. But this is my family. My two kids fish with me. They've worked with me ever since they were youth. We rely on this, we need this, and this is what we do. So thank you all for coming. You know, thanks for all being here. You know, this is the final product. This is where our product ends up, is on the same table as everyone else. We may cook it in different ways. We may cook it at different visions, but we bring it to our table and that's what it's for.
Thank you, Tom, for having Chef and I on this journey with you. You've been just an incredible example of how to do it right.
Thank you.
So thank you, and thank you to your family for all your hospitality. And thank you, John and Anne-Marie, for talking to us about how to buy the right seafood at the shop. And Micah and Victoria, thank you for showing us who brings it in and how to take good care of it. So thank you for that. And thank you for the magic and the wonder of where we are right now. And thank you, Port Alberni.
On behalf of the Tatouches, let's dig in.